I can't sleep tonight. I stare at the ceiling, glad the neighbors didn't fight. The scars on his back are in my mind. I turn my own music on. I still see his back. I toss myself to my right side. I grab my phone to find his text. He most definitely will never ask for my foot services again. I've always been too blunt. I say shit other people wouldn't dream of saying. They might think it, but never say it out loud. It goes beyond my personality and lack of social graces. I hate any showboating. My free tongue makes people shudder uncomfortably, and they are easily offended by me. Everyone is offended today. They think a greeting must mean you want something from them. Man, we're screwed. I should go on the run. I've been in one place for too long. It wouldn't matter. No one knows where I've been for years. My parents probably assume I'm dead. Just like Susan. She killed herself 7 years ago. My baby sister, dead. I found her, sliced and cut in our shared bathroom. I don't remember her face, but I do the blood. I'd rather the adjoining wall was pounding than think on this morbid memory. Dad and Mom may or may not be divorced by now. I'm not sure. I lie and tell people I have no family. I lie to myself. No one asks. Just like they must believe of me, Dad and Mom are dead in my mind. I know how to disappear into the wallpaper, keep my mouth shut and no one is the wiser, act nonchalant and they won't inquire. Don't have an opinion. If you do, don't share it. That's how it was in my family. Only with them, I never kept my mouth to myself. It all appeared perfect to the outsiders looking in. Successful. Yeah, right. That's what my parents led people to believe. I can't hate them. Everyone else does it too. Rich and poor alike. The country club swarmed with fakery. The only thing real in that place were the highly tended exotic plants. The rich hold their noses upward, not to smell their own dung. Pretension, gossip, and judgment flew from their mouths. Not one conversation exchanged of any value. Kings and queens of a self-proclaimed world. I come from ivory fortresses whose people held no regard for those without. They would throw money from their towers on occasion to ease their guilt of contribution. Nothing more than a tax incentive for self-serving distributions. Those tacky socioeconomics are merely an engine of overinflated relevance. Keep the other guy down to feel better about oneself. I had the worst of both worlds. Dad's money was old money. Mom's was new and not considered money at all. Dad's family swam in blue chips, while Mom's labored to keep their necks above the blue collars. Dad's was soaked in dividends, and Mom's was strongly divided. Money does that. They thought they could control everything. Poor suckers. They couldn't stop Susan from taking her life. My family has so much money, they almost got away with bribing officials to lie about the exact cause of death. That's why I'm no longer there. I won't let her lovely life be lied about in death. How proper Dad was, shaking hands, patting backs, and hugging all the women. He never hugged Susan. He ignored everything she did. It was more important that anyone living outside our family dynamic could watch from afar and believe us superior. His arm around her in public left Susie to beam, and everyone else to think him such a fine father. He knew better than to pretend the doting dad act and put his arm around me. I never blamed him for anything, except the deception of our life. I confronted his pretension without thought. It wasn't until then that I understood he had multiple faces. He never hurt me, but a few fine crystal snifters flew across the room. Never the cognac. I told him to pay attention to Susie because she adored him. He would not be challenged. I never did it for me, but for my tender sister. His threats of withholding money made me laugh. Tools used to contrive manipulation. I never could be. He secretly admired it, but hated it all the while. Can't say that I remember him much growing up. He's a vague sort of picture in my mind. The only family gathering was weekly at the club. I thought him debonair in his fine clothes. His hand wore a sparkling ring, and his wrist an elaborate watch in the company of wealth. His nail beds were more pronounced than other men's, broad, rounded, clean, and perfectly manicured. He gave none of his time to me when I was young and impressionable. Days went by, and I didn't even remember I had a father. Susie cried when our parents fought. It hurt her on a deep level. I didn't have to become conditioned to ease any pain resulting from it. It never disturbed me. I told her it was their nasty marital habit and to ignore the muffled sounds of their angry voices pushing through the walls for us to hear. Only she couldn't. Susie cried if an egg was dropped out of a bird's nest in the springtime. Her heart bled for everything that mattered. Dad didn't become an active participant until I grew nice tits and flaunted them. I was indifferent and didn't wonder why he was the way he was. Susie cared about it all, trying to figure him out just to please him. There was no pleasing him. He shifted what made him happy from day to day. All of those lightly intoxicated late-night talks he gave, she hung on his every word. I watched the minutes roll by, waiting for them to end, and spelled words in my head. Don't let a boy touch your back. It only leads to other things. I already knew what it led to, but Susie was intrigued. That was the enormity of our instruction to remain virgins. It was too late for me. Not one conversation about sex was had, only not to have it, as if not discussing sex made it imaginary. Be respectable and act like a lady. Be a lady in public and a slut in bed. That's what he expected of Mom. He had little to say that I'd believe. He cared less about our well-being and only how things presented. When I dressed in a compromised fashion, he'd tell me not to go out in public that way. Change into something decent. I'm more clothed than the women you ogle in your magazines. Do what you're told. Why? Young women today dress with juicy plastered on their backside and then wonder why they're raped. I was appalled by his true ignorance. Rape isn't about sex. It's a forceful show of control. Fully clothed men get raped too. Women ask for it by teasing men, dress the way you are. So women in Middle Eastern countries covered head to toe never get raped? Why must you be so obstinate? Statistically, women in African nations who expose their breasts for suckling purposes are less likely to be raped. He would glare hard at me. Don't fight fire with fuel. You represent this family when you walk out that door. He thought I couldn't keep track of previous subjects. His diversions were pathetic, as if I'd let my guard down and suddenly not debate his opinions, which lacked any real contemplation. Then I represent you perfectly. You prefer women who dress like this. And if the only qualifying factor is what I wear, I won't come crying to you if I get raped. You are a whore like your mother. Like my mother? How clever do you think you are, screwing other women and blaming Mom? Everything you blame her for is what you're guilty of. Give me the keys to your car, he'd demand. I threw them on the counter and walked away. Get back here. Get back here now. Our rift was not a generational gap played out by rebellious daughter and insistent father. It was me seeing his blatant hypocrisy and confronting it when he cornered me. I didn't go looking for it, and he didn't have to say the negative words that engaged me. I ignored him, but he insisted it would always be a contest of wills. He called me a spoiled brat all the time. I agreed, and it made him madder when I reminded him he was responsible. His control was abstract. How did he pick and choose? He wanted to feast on his indulgences, but decided for us what we could. I was smart and figured it out. In public, be someone you're not in the privacy of your own home. pleasantries dispersed for the candy eaters and social gatherings, then backbiting carnivores at home. Such the gentleman in front of others, a villain behind the doors of separation. He thought his indiscretions weren't known by others. People knew. He hated that I gave a flick what others thought. What they thought of me was not his true concern, but what they thought of him because of me, a reflection of his misguided intentions. We were to be considered model, upstanding, and above reproach by outsiders, like children can somehow redeem the wrong their parents do. It's sick, but what he expected. I was a frightful monster he created. I was ruthless, like him. Only I missed the lesson on keeping it secret, and he despised me for it. I was his daughter, he would say with false pride. Empty words to me. I told him the women he did were some other men's daughters. I never once cleaned up a broken glass he threw at me, even though he insisted. I laughed when he told me it was my fault he threw the glass. I deserve your respect, he'd arrogantly say. The same thing said as if repetition would one day make me a convert. Respect is earned. I haven't earned it with you. I provide for you better than any one of your friends are provided for. His inherited fortunes could have done that. Women need more than provision. You sound like your mother. I would. We're females. Ungrateful females. If the energy used to present your idealistic life were channeled to make her happy, you'd have Mom's respect. You will never succeed in life if you refuse to respect your superiors. I'll take my chances. You have so much to learn. It was said with great condescension. If you think college will teach me what you failed to, you're delusional. I don't have to pay for your education. You'd only be paying for your own expectations anyway. Women want their cake and eat it too. What, by God, he demanded, did I fail to teach you? I said anything to shut the argument down. Intimacy. I told you about sex. I was referring to the intimacy of affection and loving relationships, but intimacy went over his head and sounded too akin to sex in his male mind. Not to have it doesn't qualify as in-depth. All the while, you play out your fantasies with any taut woman wearing hot pink panties. Who needs the lesson here? Intimacy is more than sex, as much as rape has nothing to do with it. You know Susan will marry some bastard that will ignore her. I gave my best. Men seek glory in strangers. This comment would unnerve him to no end, because he knew it was the gut-curdling truth. The trashy women he nailed were nothing more than paid worshippers of his grotesque ego. I never wanted to prove my cleverness to him, but when he wanted a good spar, he picked me. His designs were for me to study pre-med, follow in Daddy's footsteps. He threatened not to pay for my education because of my choice. I wanted to build the world. I always respected the men who did.